Every day, we encounter behaviors so ordinary, so normalized, that we rarely stop to question them. Smiling in uncomfortable situations, keeping ourselves overly busy, striving to be perfect. These all seem like harmless, even admirable traits. But what if they're not? What if these normal behaviors are actually red flags, subtle psychological warnings that something deeper is wrong? Carl Jung, one of the founding fathers of analytical psychology, believed that beneath the surface of our daily behaviors lie powerful unconscious forces, wounds, fears, and unresolved conflicts that shape our actions. These forces don't always express themselves through panic attacks or breakdowns. Sometimes they show up in the most socially acceptable ways. And that's what makes them so dangerous. They go unnoticed. In this video, we're peeling back the mask. Through Jung's eyes, we'll explore the hidden layers of behaviors we often praise, but which might be quiet signs of mental distress. Stay with me until the end, because understanding these signs might just be the key to understanding yourself. 1. The compulsion to be nice, the persona trap. In our society, being nice is often seen as a social currency. We're taught from childhood to smile, be polite, avoid conflict, and suppress negative emotions like anger or frustration. But Carl Jung warned that this tendency to be overly nice could actually be a symptom of psychological repression. He called this mask the persona, the face we wear to conform, to fit in, to be accepted by others. While the persona helps us navigate social life, over-identification with it can be mentally suffocating. When someone is always agreeable, when they constantly put others before themselves, and never express their true needs or opinions, it's not always because they're emotionally mature. More often it's a fear-driven strategy, a fear of abandonment, rejection, or being unloved. Jung believed that if we silence our true selves long enough, we begin to lose touch with who we really are. Eventually, this can lead to symptoms of depression, anxiety, and even dissociation. Philosophically, this behavior mirrors what existential thinkers like Kierkegaard feared: the loss of authenticity. Living behind a mask is easier than confronting our full, messy, emotional reality. But as Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. So, when you notice someone who's always too nice, ask, is this kindness, or is it a silent cry for help? 2. Hyper-independence, the hidden wound of betrayal. We live in a world that celebrates self-reliance. Phrases like, I got this, or I don't need anyone, are often seen as signs of strength and resilience, but Jung believed that extreme independence could be a defense mechanism, an emotional armor forged in the fires of betrayal or abandonment. When someone has been deeply hurt, especially in childhood, they may come to believe that depending on others is dangerous. As a result, they isolate emotionally and refuse help, even when they desperately need it. This behavior isn't rooted in confidence, it's rooted in fear. Fear of being disappointed again. Fear of needing someone who might eventually leave. Jung viewed this as the ego protecting the inner child, the vulnerable self, by building walls instead of bridges. But the tragedy of this defense is that it prevents real intimacy. People trapped in hyper-independence often feel alone, misunderstood, and emotionally starved, even when surrounded by others. Ancient philosophy has long warned against this kind of self-imposed exile. In Aristotle's view, humans are social animals. Even Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, known for their self-discipline, emphasized interconnectedness with the universe and with others. True strength lies not in isolation, but in the courage to connect, despite the risk of pain. 3. Perfectionism. The shadow behind the smile. Perfectionism is often praised as ambition. People who strive for excellence, who set high standards for themselves, are admired. But Jung urged us to look beneath the surface. He believed perfectionism is often the ego's attempt to banish the shadow, the darker, unconscious aspects of the personality that we'd rather not face. When we obsess over being flawless, it's usually because we're terrified of what might happen if we're not. The perfectionist is haunted by a hidden voice: you're not good enough. If you make a mistake, you'll be unlovable. This voice doesn't come from nowhere. It's often internalized from early criticism or trauma. Jung taught that by avoiding the shadow, we allow it to grow more powerful. Perfectionism becomes a cage, where our self-worth is tied entirely to performance. Over time, this can lead to burnout, anxiety, and a deep sense of emptiness. There's a paradox here. In striving to be perfect, we disconnect from what makes us human. Even the great philosophers recognize this. Socrates claimed that wisdom begins with accepting one's ignorance. Similarly, Jung stated, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Only by embracing our flaws can we move toward true healing. 4. Constant busyness, avoiding the inner world. How often do we glorify the hustle? How often do we pride ourselves on being booked and busy, as if constant motion is a virtue? Jung saw this as another defense, an escape from the inner world. In fact, he noted that many people keep themselves endlessly occupied to avoid confronting the silence where the unconscious speaks. Busyness becomes a numbing agent, disguised as productivity. When you're constantly distracted, you don't have to feel. You don't have to think about your pain, your fears, your unresolved traumas. Jung believed that people fear introspection because it might reveal truths they're not ready to face. But this avoidance doesn't bring peace. It only postpones the inevitable. The suppressed material in the psyche will eventually surface, often in the form of dreams, anxiety, or breakdowns. This insight connects with ancient philosophical teachings, especially Stoicism. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Jung would argue that true fulfillment comes not from endless activity, but from the courage to be still, to listen to the soul's quiet whisperings in solitude. 5. The nice guy or good girl syndrome, when virtue becomes a mask. Some people spend their entire lives trying to be good, never getting angry, never making demands, never showing their darker sides. On the surface, these people seem admirable. But Jung warned that this compulsive goodness often masks a dangerous repression. He called this the neurosis of goodness, a condition in which individuals deny their natural instincts to maintain a socially acceptable image. These people suppress their anger, desires, and impulses in order to maintain harmony, but what they're really doing is fragmenting their psyche. Jung explained that what we repress doesn't disappear. It goes into the unconscious and begins to rot. Over time, the person may become passive-aggressive, emotionally distant, or even experience sudden explosive episodes that seem completely out of character. The deeper issue is identity. When you define yourself solely by how good you are, you abandon your full humanity. Jung emphasized integration, the uniting of opposites. To be whole, you must accept both light and shadow. As he famously said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Wholeness begins where denial ends. 6. The obsession with labels, when identity becomes a cage. In today's culture, there's a growing tendency to over-identify with psychological labels. Whether it's calling yourself an empath, an INFJ, ADHD, or labeling others as narcissists, we're drawn to definitions. While these labels can offer understanding and relief, Jung cautioned against using them as permanent identities. Why? Because the psyche is fluid. To label it too rigidly is to stop it from evolving. When someone says, "I'm just this way," they may unknowingly halt their own growth. Jung believed the self is not a fixed point, but a dynamic process, what he called individuation. It's the journey of becoming who you truly are, by integrating the conscious and unconscious, the known and the unknown. Labels can be useful road signs, but they're not the destination. Philosophically, this echoes the ancient wisdom of Heraclitus: you cannot step into the same river twice. The self is always changing, always unfolding. When we trap ourselves in identity, we miss out on transformation. Jung would say, "Don't ask who am I, ask who am I becoming." So now, ask yourself, which of these normal behaviors do you recognize in your own life? What have you been taught to admire that may actually be harming you? Carl Jung didn't want us to fear these signs, he wanted us to understand them. Because once we see them clearly, we can begin the work of integration, of healing, of becoming whole. Remember, the signs of mental illness aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they look like politeness, like productivity, like perfection. But if we're willing to look beneath the surface, we might uncover not just our pain, but also our potential. If this video sparked something in you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your journey inward starts with awareness, and it may be the most important journey you ever take. See you in the next one.